It's another Raw video from your favorite YouTube scout, Draft Raw Authentic. Yes, finally making another video. And like I said, it's a Raw video, so there will be no edits. Anyway, if you can tell by the title, then you know what this video is about. And it is about the 2018 NFL Draft defensive ends / pass rushers. Now, in the last two videos that I made, what was that, last Saturday, when it came to the inside and outside linebackers, well, I had split that up into 2/3 categories, right? You had the inside linebackers, straight up middle linebackers. Then you had the outside linebackers, but I split that up into two, where you had 3-4 outside linebackers and you had regular 4-3 outside linebackers. Whether they was strong side or weak side, it didn't matter. Now, in this vid, I will be talking more about some 3-4 outside linebackers. But these are guys that I think that can be pure pass rushers. And there's actually one name in that list that I actually forgot to mention in my last video. For whatever reason, I just forgot to write his name down. So I'm going to mention him in this video because it is about pass rushers as well. But this guy is more than just a regular pass rusher. So I have to put his name out there. I have to mention him. But this vid is going to be, like I said, about the defensive end / pass rushers. So anyway, I got this split up into 4 categories, correct, right? I got it in as the guys I like, the guys I don't like, the 3-4 only pass rushers, where I think are guys that they're not just 3-4 pass rushers or 3-4 guys, but I feel as though they are kind of designated pass rushers only, and the not so sure list as well. I also got one name on this list that I want to mention, and he's on my not sure list, but he also is on my like list. I put him in both because it's one of those things where I like him, but let's just get into the video because I'll explain why he's on both. I can't even explain it right now. I just want to explain later on in the video. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with my don't like list. Guys that I don't like, I just want to get them out the way, and I'm not going to tell you why I don't like them. It's just that when I see the tape, I don't like them. Now, there's about 18 names on this list. I watched tons of videos. I'm not going to go into detail about every single player, so let's just get into it. Guys I don't like. Sam Hubbard from Ohio State. Not a huge fan. Think he's a little bit overrated. He's just a simple outside defensive end. He's just nothing special about him. I think that he gets put up there because he's an Ohio State player and not because he's actually good. And I think that he benefits from Nick Bosa being across from him. Next name on the list is Josh Sweat from Florida State. I saw some tapes, and there was just a lot of things I don't like. I know that he gets a pretty good amount of sacks. I know that he's very athletic, but that's not going to cut it to me in the NFL. He's a guy that I'm just not a fan of. Jeff Holland, same thing, a guy I wasn't a fan of. Almost kind of like Josh Sweat. Whatever. Marcel Frazier is another guy I don't like. And the last name on the list is Tyquan Lewis from Ohio State. Don't like him neither. I just want to say this. With those 5 names, when I was watching the defensive end list, not list, but just watching defensive ends, period, I got bored at one point. I saw about 2 guys, and then the rest of the names on the list, I just got bored. And these were the next top names on the list, and I was just like, what in the world? Come on. I almost fell asleep watching these guys. It was so boring. They didn't flash anything. And it's not about being flashy, but you just got to show me something. You got to show me some aggressiveness. You got to show me some intellect. You got to show me a lot of different things. And these guys didn't show me that. So, at least something. And they just didn't show me. I got bored and whatever. And to a point where usually it takes me about a week or maybe 2 weeks to watch a whole position. This took me about 3 weeks, almost a month to watch all of them because I was bored. But anyway, just getting rid of that list of the guys I don't like. Let's get into the guys I'm actually unsure about. Adi, a runner from Tulane. Unsure about him. He's a guy that he had a good combine with 40-yard dash, so you know he's pretty fast. He's pretty athletic, but he's one of those guys that kind of played out of position and kind of didn't. The year before, he didn't play out of position. He played a lot of outside linebacker in a 3-4, but then he did have his hand on the ground in a 3-4 as well. And he wasn't as bad. And this year, it was actually not that great, and he didn't do as good as he did last year as a player. And he's one of those guys I'm just unsure about. I don't know if he has a actual position in the league, but he's one of those guys that I think can be a rotational pass rushing guy that can develop in like 2 or 3 years like a Vinny Curry. That's who he reminds me of just a little bit. A guy that, yeah, he's an outside defensive end, but you can kind of throw him inside, but maybe he's not his best position, but he can do it with his speed and everything, so we'll see about that. And the other name on the list is Justin Lawler from SMU. I'm just not so sure about him as a player. He's got good athleticism, but there's certain stuff about him that kind of just, it makes him, I don't know. I'm just not sure about him. He can still be a good player in this league, but I'm just very, very unsure about him. So, sorry, the camera was in my mouth. I try and wipe my camera off. But anyway, and I'm gonna name the guy that I was talking about earlier that I like him, but then I'm unsure about him because of immaturity. He's very aggressive, and I love the way he plays. But the dude is so immature. I saw a game where, I think there was 2 different games he got kicked out for just being immature. And it's one of those things where you can't have that on your team. You love his aggressiveness. You love the way he can play. But you cannot have that on your team. I love this dude, the way he plays, the way he just goes. But it's a huge disappointment. A huge, huge disappointment. And his name is Breeland Speaks. Breeland Speaks. If your team picks this guy, you're getting a solid player. Not a solid player. You're getting a good, aggressive pass rusher. But you're going to have to deal with the immaturity. You're going to have to deal with just a guy that can't control his emotions sometimes. And that's the reason I have him on the unsure list if he's going to become something in the league. But he's one of those guys I would definitely have on the list of, hey, he's going to be productive. So those are those names on the list. So let's get to the good part of the list, and somewhat a little bit bad, but the better parts of the list, okay? So I'm going to actually start with the 3-4 pass rushers only. Guys that, not just 3-4 pass rushers, but guys that I feel as though are just designated pass rushers. Now, this list is a little bit up and down, but there's a reason why I have it like that. And I'm going to get the 2 guys that I'm a little bit down on in terms of just straight pass rushers. And that is Arden Key, who last year was a really, really good player. Pass rusher, can give you a lot of good stuff. But this past season, it didn't, for whatever reason, I mean, the troubles that he had with the weight and then him not quitting on the football team but going home and then finally coming back and not being in football shape. He played better later on down the stretch, but it still wasn't good. This is a guy that I think that he can go back to what he was, but he has to start off as just a pure pass rusher if he wants to do that. He reminds me of Barkevious Mingo, and he also reminds me of Vic Beasley. Barkevious Mingo a lot more, and it maybe has somewhat to do with, they both played at LSU, but I think he's actually a guy that could be better as a linebacker than as a defensive end, and that's why I have him on a 3-4 pass rusher only list. So the next name is Dorrance Armstrong, played defensive end for Kansas. Very undersized type of defensive end, has to play outside linebacker no matter what, whether it's a 4-3 or a 3-4. But he's one of those guys that this past year, it wasn't good. And I didn't like anything I saw. Last year, I didn't watch the tape of him last year. But I saw his stats, and I'm like, oh, he had pretty good stats. But this year, 2 sacks on the season, didn't look good. Seemed like he was very overmatched. Seemed like a guy that was just a pass rusher. He needs to just be a pass rusher. He doesn't need to be out there on every play, or he doesn't need to be out there 80% of the plays. You put him out there on 3rd down. You put him out there in 50 or less than percent of the plays, and you just tell him to hunt. That's all you do. He's one of those guys that, kind of took a hit this year and getting lower on the list, but I'm just unsure about him too as well. But he's one of those guys that I would just keep as a designated pass rusher only, nothing more. Next name on the list is Marquise Hayes from Ole Miss. This dude can rush the passer. I mean, he can really, really play defense, but he's a designated guy. I wouldn't put him as a starting weak side or strong side 3-4 outside linebacker, just a pass rusher, just like Dorrance Armstrong. But I think he's actually a little bit better than Armstrong. He's a guy that has been productive. He's a guy that has gotten after the quarterback. He's a guy that can kind of drop back in coverage and do the different things. He's an undersized defensive end, but just keep him in his lane as a pass rusher, and you may get a good productive player out of him. Next name on the list is Anthony Winbush from Ball State. Straight up speed rusher. Now, he's a guy that if he adds a little bit more size, he could be a defensive end as well. And I do like him a lot because of his speed rushing ability. But the thing is that he's just a speed rusher only. And that's why I can only put him on a designated pass rusher list. He's just designated. He goes into the league. He's just a pass rusher. I don't know if he can do more than that. But to me, his speed is very unmatched. Like, he's got a good get off, good speed, get around the corner, make the sack, do the things that you need, but honestly, just a pass rusher only. The next name I'm going to put on this list is a guy that I feel as though can play in a 3-4 or 4-3, is the guy that I forgot to mention in the outside linebacker video. And his name is Darius Jackson from Jacksonville State. I think I forgot to put his name down because there was another Darius on the list. And for whatever reason, while I was looking at the names, I just thought, oh, that's Darius again. And I just forgot to write his name down. But Darius Jackson is an all-around versatile player. This guy can rush the passer. He can drop back in coverage. I mean, I haven't seen a guy like him, man, in a very long time. Like, just the fluidness, the fluidity of being able to drop back in coverage, the natural pass rushing skills that he does have. Now, he will kind of be on an unsure list because this is a guy that comes from Jacksonville State. It's a very small school, so you're not really sure how good this guy's going to be. But you know what? If your team picks him, you're getting a player that can play 3-4, 4-3. I personally think he can play every linebacker position in the draft. Not in the draft, but in the league. Whether if it's 3-4, 4-3, you're going to get a very versatile all-around linebacker that can do it all. So if you see him, if your team gets him, trust me, you got a guy. You got somebody that can play. But anyway, let's really get into the list of the defensive ends that I really, really like. And these are guys that are the top defensive ends in the draft. First name on the list, Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb is just, like I said in my defensive tackle videos with like a Vita Vea, I can't really say much about him because this guy has it all. Top 5 pick. There is like... The guy, I mean, stopping a run, rushing a passer, you can't do end arounds, towards his side. You can't do nothing. This guy is a disruptor. He is probably the best defensive end prospect I've seen since just pure defensive end. I mean, you had your Myles Garrett. Actually, yeah, Myles Garrett's pretty close. Jadeveon Clowney, wasn't a huge fan, but I liked his tape the year before Jadeveon Clowney. And I'll actually say him. Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney. Just, I mean, as a pass rusher, you can't get any better than this dude. I mean, seriously, this guy, I mean, not even just a pass rusher, but an all-around defensive end, you can't get better than him. He is just a pure 4-3 defensive end, and you're going to get a productive player whoever drafts him. To me, Bradley Chubb is my number 1 player in the draft. I don't care what anybody say. I don't care if they say Quentin Nelson. I don't care if they say Saquon Barkley. I don't care if they say Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't care who they say. Bradley Chubb is my number 1 player in this draft. All around. Next name on the list. Oh, you know who I haven't seen a defensive end as good as him? Joey Bosa. That's who I was thinking of. Joey Bosa is one of the best defensive ends I have seen. One of the best defensive ends I have seen. And I haven't seen one until I seen Bradley Chubb. But anyway, next name on the list is Marcus Davenport. I really do like this guy. I'm not too high on him like a lot of people will have him, but I do like his aggressiveness and I like his willingness. Some guys kind of be a little lazy as defensive ends. He's a willing defensive end. That's why I really have a huge love for this guy, because I know that he's someone that's not going to give up on a play. He's not someone that's going to be lazy. He's going to work hard, and that's why I like Marcus Davenport. On top of that, he does have measurables, which I've always said measurables don't matter, but it is something that puts a plus on his name with the measurables that he does have. So your team gets him. You're going to get a raw project type of player, but he's somebody that at least have willingness. And someone who has willingness is Chad Thomas from Miami. This guy is the exact same thing as Marcus Davenport. The difference is I think Davenport had a lot more production this year than Chad Thomas, but Chad Thomas is probably the most aggressive defensive end I saw on tape. Even more aggressive than Bradley Chubb. The guy he just keeps going. The motor just keeps going. And no, he didn't have production, but he didn't have the production in sacks. But he had production in pressures. And pressures is just as good as sacks. Pressures allow throws to be overthrown or underthrown. They cause interceptions. They causes plays to get broken down. The quarterback has to run out the pocket and different stuff like that. It disrupts the timing. This guy was one of the most aggressive guys I've seen. And that's why I really, really like him. Now, in those three names, as defensive ends, I'm a huge fan of these guys in terms of the guys that I like. And I'm about to get into three more names that are kind of underrated, but are guys that if your team picks them, you may be getting a good player, but still kind of be on the unsure list, but still guys that I do like. One guy is Duke Ejiofor. I may have said that name wrong. Ejiofor, Duke Ejiofor from Wake Forest. Now, the one thing that I don't like about him is the pass rushing plethora of moves. I like the way how aggressive he can be. I like, his willingness and stuff like that. But one thing that I saw that was a little alarming, and it's kind of weird, but it's one of those things that he has to really work on. When he played on the weak side, which would be when he was going against the left tackle of an offense, he always tried to cut to the inside, going to his left. He never tried to run to the outside a lot. Never tried to speed rush to the outside. He always tried to juke the tackle and go straight to the inside. And then when he was on the strong side, which is him playing against the right tackle, he always rushed to the outside. It's like he liked going to his left a lot to get to the quarterback. And I don't know why he likes doing that. It's a little weird. But it's one of those things he really needs to work on, because in the NFL, he's going to get destroyed. But I do like his willingness and the way he'll keep on going. He's not going to stop. He will keep on going. But it's one of those alarming things that, that is a little weird to me. And he's the only other guy that I actually have on my unsure list because of that. So take it for what you want, but that's who he is. He has to work on it, but I do like him. The last two names on this list are two underrated sleeper players. One is Joe Ostman from Central Michigan. He led 2017 with sacks, and he's a pretty good pass rusher. The thing is that the question is he a 3-4 outside linebacker, or is he a defensive end? He's one of those guys that can be either one. He can also be a designated pass rusher when he first starts in the league, but he's one of those guys that after a year or two, he can be a starter in this league, and he's very underrated. I like the way he plays. I like the way he gets after the quarterback. Watch out for that name, because in 3 years, you could be hearing that name as a top pass rusher in the NFL. The last name is Ola Ndiaye from Toledo. I don't know how to say his name. He's the biggest sleeper pass rusher in this draft. I really like this dude as with his speed and everything that he can bring. I didn't get to see tons of video on him, but I did like what I saw. I want to see more, but there's not a lot that is out there. But anyway, this is a guy that, if your team drafts him, give him 2 or 3 years, and you'll see what you have. If you don't have nobody, if he's not that good, then he's not that good. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be picked in the first 3 rounds. So, you got that. But he's one of those guys that He's a sleeper, and if he does the right thing and if he takes coaching well, then he will be a better player. So anyway, that is my list of the defensive ends of the 2018 NFL Draft. If you like this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. If you didn't like what I had to say about a certain player, or if you like what I had to say about a certain player, please comment so we can have a debate. Please share this video so other people can join this debate and we can build a draft community. And I thank you for watching. Once again, this is Draft Raw Authentic. Thank you and goodbye.